as a community tonight, we're going to be looking at what we can do. What, as a community, how we could behave, what we could do different, what's on our minds as far as how to become a better community, how to become a caring community. So that's where our discussion will go, and some dreams of what could happen in a better world. But we'll start with some of the sad stories so that you get a sense of what kids are up against, what teachers are up against, what our neighborhoods are up against, and where and how we fit in, and think of some solutions and ways we can better care for one another. So I'm going to start with Tarah Dorsey. She's going to tell us.
Hi, as Ms. Dorothy said, my name's Tarah Dorsey. I'm 36 years old now, but when she asked me to tell my story, I said again. But they say stories change lives, so I'm just going to tell you a little bit about myself. I'm 36 years old now. I grew up in Pawtucket, Rhode Island, and I was raised between the Pawtucket and the here on the east side because my grandmother lived on the east side. I was born, it was me and my twin sister. I had an identical twin when I was born, and I also have two little sisters who are 11 and 12 years apart from me. 11 years old was when I first got my taste of the streets, you know. I lived in Pawtucket, like I said, but my aunt lived in Providence, Wiggins Village, over there in Cotton Court on the West End, and I would go to my cousin's house for the summer to hang with my cousin, and she had an older sister, and her older sister was 19, I was 11, her sister was 13, the one I went to go visit, and my 19-year-old cousin's boyfriend gave me drugs to sell. And he gave me drugs to sell, and I remember running to cars and getting the money, and the older dudes and the older crowd would, yeah, shorty, that's good, and they'd give me like $20, $30 from my pocket, bring all me and my friends to McDonald's, buy me a new shiny bike. At the time, I didn't know it. I knew it was bad, but not how bad it really was. And what I loved the most was the attention from the adults. My dad worked a lot. At the time, I didn't know my mother used drugs because we always had like food, clothes, and things. But one thing my mother didn't give me much of was attention. You know what I mean? It was like I can do what I want when I want, as long as I wasn't in her way. I loved to play basketball. I was good in basketball. I was the first girl in Rhode Island to play tackle football for a Pop Warner team. First string wide receiver, that was good. I loved to skateboard, but like I said, I would go to Providence, come home and try to be that normal kid. But every summer I couldn't wait to get back to Providence, 12, 13 years old. Junior high school, things changed a lot because now I knew what the streets was, but when I come back to Pawtucket to go to Slater Junior High School in Pawtucket, me and my friends would like smoke cigarettes, steal off parents' beers, and drink after school, go in one door and out the other. I remember this day kind of clearly. Me and my friends bunked school, and we went to go hang with some boys, and we was drinking, and we got drunk on the 40 ounces, and I made a decision under the influence. I got pregnant. I got pregnant with my daughter at the age of 14, drinking with my friends, hanging out. But like I said, I always loved the attention from the older people. By the way, my daughter's father was 20 years old. I was 14. But I thought hanging with the crowd was, that was what was up. 16 years old, I got pregnant again with my son. But at that time, it wasn't a choice. You know what I mean? I got raped. Not to get, but it is what it is. I was drinking. I was at a party, hanging out. And I got violated. I had my son at 16. I hid my pregnancy with my son until I was 7 months pregnant. I tried to hide it, and my aunt came into the bathroom one day and was like, "Lift up your shirt." She was like, "You're pregnant," And like I said, my mother should have known I was pregnant, but because she never paid much attention to me, she didn't even know that her 16-year-old daughter was walking around the house with a belly. I tried to commit suicide while pregnant with my son. I was thinking maybe it was like a cry for attention. You know what I mean? Attention and affection more than really wanting to kill myself. My aunt intervened, my mother's sister. She intervened and took custody of both my daughter and my daughter and my son. When my daughter was like 2.5 years old, my son was 2 weeks old. I can remember days when I was home and playing football, tackle football in the yard. Remember, I'm only 14 years old, and my mother's yelling out the window, "Tarah, come in the house, it's time to feed the baby." You know what I mean? Now that I look back on it and I go, wow, you know? So when my aunt took my kids, it was more like, wow, now I get to be who I want to be, or be free, or be in the streets. And what I did was, instead of going to school and getting my education, I quit school and I gravitated to the streets because that's what I liked, and I got a taste of that when I was younger. So now in the streets, I'm selling drugs, drinking, and whatever party there was, I can find, I was just partying, drinking. I'm thinking it was cool, let's get turned up with my friends. I never had an older person ever tell me, come on, kid, you're better than this, or let me show you a different way. Like, I never had that. 18 years old was my first time. I never went to training school, but I turned 18 December 1st. December 21st, around the 21st, was my first time I ever stepped into a prison. I went to the women's ACI at 18 years old for a violent crime on the streets, acting out I committed a crime of violence. When I stepped into the prison, everybody says when you go to prison, to be scared. I was kind of scared, but I was like, you know what? If anybody messes with me, I know what I'm gonna do. But when I walked into the prison, it was a place to be so much fear of, because now all the friends that I couldn't find was there. You know what I mean? All my friends that's where they was. They were there. They was in the prison. But my mother would come up and bring my kids to visit, and my family would visit and things like that. But when I came home, I spent my first time 90 days in prison. But when I came home, my friends were like, oh yeah, you did a time in prison. Now my street cred went up, you know what I mean? Not knowing these choices that I made that back then were gonna affect my future, I came home, like I said, I had a twin sister. While I was in prison, at that time, my sister had started dating a boy, and she got involved in heavier drugs. Whatever she did, I did. I got involved in heavier drugs. It was no more drinking and smoking weed. It got into harder drugs. I'm not gonna get specific, but I started using harder drugs, and me and my twin sister were on the streets, doing drugs, hanging out. I was 24 years old, and I got a phone call. Well, I didn't get a phone call. I called my parents. Let me go back. I woke up 4 o'clock in the morning to go to the bathroom, but something told me to go towards Chad Brown's side of town. So I started walking to Chad Brown, and I walked to my friend's house, and I heard about a murder that had been committed next street over. Somebody had got murdered. So I'm like, this world's messed up. Who got killed now? And I found out a few minutes later that was my twin sister. My identical twin got murdered. She got stabbed, and her body left in the street. And I went through a phase where I couldn't separate from her. I would sleep in the graveyard. You know what I mean? I'd park my car and sleep next to her every night. I didn't know how to grieve. My mother grieved her way. My father grieved his way. My sisters were little, but I self-medicated. I drank more, got more violent. But the worst thing to do, I realized, was not to care. I didn't care. When somebody says I do not care and really mean it, it's tragic, So I try to live my life and get off drugs when my sister died, and do the right thing and be a better mother, but inside I never grieved. I had a nervous breakdown, and I dropped my kids off. My kids were with me that day, and I dropped them off to my aunts, and I didn't want to live anymore. So I decided to go rob a store. But when I went to go rob that store, I was thinking maybe that person behind the counter could take my life, you know what I mean? Because I didn't have enough guts to kill myself. So I went to the store, I robbed the store, and nothing happened. So nobody killed me, So I went and I robbed another store, nothing happened. What happened was I ended up in prison, and my sentence, they gave me a sentence of life with 12 to serve. Life in Rhode Island is 25 years. They gave me 50 years with 12 to serve inside the prison. So when I went inside the prison, I always say there's no such thing as a geographical recovery. I took me with me. I took all the pain, all the anger, all the hurt, all the not caring with me inside the prison. And inside the prison, I'd act out. I'd be violent. I'd find a way to get drugs inside the prison. It became so bad that the warden of the prison told me they wanted me out of her prison. I was a menace to her prison, and they was gonna send me to Florida prison. And my family wrote the directives and things of the prison for me to stay here. And I promised that I'd change if I got to stay. Well, I got out of, before, let me go back a little bit. I overdosed in prison, getting drugs, getting high. I overdosed inside prison off the drugs. And when I woke up, I was like, man, why did they wake me up? But I spent a long time in what we call segregation. And segregation is when you're in a room 23 hours a day by yourself, and your food is fed to you in a slot in the door, you know. So I spent 23 hours a day in that room for almost 6 months. But I promised myself and my family when I got out of that situation, out of that seg, that I was gonna change. And I didn't know where change was gonna come from, but I remember an officer coming to my, because there's a window in your door, a slit window, and then that's where they put your food in. But an officer would come to my window and he talked to me, a correctional officer, and say, Tarah, you know, you're better than this. You're a good kid. You know, he used to tell me about God, and I used to say, if there's a God, why did that have to happen to my twin sister? There's no God, you know. But he would say things to me, and I'd act like I wasn't listening. But at night, I'd sit on my bunk and think about the things he said, and he cared about me, you know what I mean? And he meant it. So I went back into what they call normal population, whereas you leave there and you go back into the population with the rest of the inmates. But I made a pact to myself is that when I get, I would stay away from the people with clicking up. We used to click up, you know, the blacks with the blacks and the Spanish with the Spanish, the whites with the whites. Woonsocket and Providence stayed over there, and you know. So, but I made a decision. I'm not going to be around these people. I'm going to hang by myself in here. And if I can't find nobody positive to hang with, it's all about me. So that's what I did. I stayed to myself. I take classes. They had classes, houses of healing, Bible studies, learning to live. And I take them classes and I take them seriously. I wouldn't watch TV for like 18 months, you know what I mean? I didn't want nothing negative around me or inside of me. I'd read nothing but positive books, and things started changing slowly, you know what I mean? And I started seeing the world different. I started treating people different, you know. And 5 years into my sentence, 5.5 years into my sentence, I made parole. And parole is where you're not finished with your sentence, but they said, you know, you've been doing good, we're gonna let you go home and try to live on the streets. And so that's what I did, 5.5 years out of 12. I came home, and that was in 2011, and I came home and I did well for a while. I wasn't drinking. I started drinking again. I didn't commit any crimes, but I started drinking, hanging out, or whatever. They never sent me back to prison. I got what they call dirty urines for alcohol, for having alcohol in my system. But in 2012, they sent me to a rehab instead of back to prison, and I left the rehab, and I did well, and I haven't drank or used drugs since. But they did send me back to prison for driving without a license. Driving without a license was a violation of my parole, not so much a criminal charge, but that was something I wasn't supposed to do. So I went back for 13 months, and I just got released this past June on parole again, but this time I have GPS. GPS is, you know what GPS is, the monitor where, you know, show you where you're at. I have that on my ankle. GPS monitor, so they know where I'm at all times. They know I'm not driving. They know I'm to go home, work, or whatever's on my schedule, that's where I'm to go. They can always check right now and say, is she on Duncan Avenue like she's supposed to be, you know? I have a relationship with my kids now. I have 2 grandkids. Things changed profoundly for me. I'll save that part for later. You know, that's the sad part. There is kind of a good ending to the story, and the story's not done yet. So that's the sad part. And Miss Dorothy asked me, you know, what was different in junior high school and when I was a kid, and I said, well, the most profound thing anybody ever said to me now is they said to me, I believe in you. And it's one person, Robin, she believed in me. And I'm like, it's that simple? Like, all she said was she believed in me. And you know, and now me and my son's 19 years old, and I don't tell my son, you know, I love you, because we know we love each other, but when we're on the phone and we hang up, we say, I believe in you. And them words are very profound to me and to my son, you know? And that's what I tell my people and people I deal with now is, I believe in you, you know? We know we love each other, but what else, you know? But so yeah, that's the part of that story. I'll save the other part for later. So for the Q&A session, okay.